What's up, buddy?
Not much, man. How are you doing?
I'm good. We are here today to do something a little different and talk about something a little different on the channel that we've never talked about before. We are talking about Star Wars, but more specifically, the current state of Star Wars.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised y'all haven't talked about it. What, like 10 Disney Plus shows out that just excellent. So
that I've only watched 2.5 of.
We were really missing out with Young Jedi Adventures. Nubs goes hard. So
have you actually watched Young Jedi Adventures?
No. But Nubs is like merchandised everywhere. I don't know his name. I looked it up for this video. I looked him up. He's a little blue dude. But yeah, he's my guy. It's kind of like my spirit animal, if you want to call him that. Or my force animal.
But yeah, today we're going to break down the current state of Star Wars. Growing up, we were both very big Star Wars fans. But I think that as we grew older, our interests in Star Wars differentiated. We both have a love for the original trilogy, but you're much more of a prequel guy than I am. I grew up, I liked the prequels obviously when I was younger because of lightsabers and all that stuff, which I think is the only reason Star Wars has endured is because of lightsabers.
I would definitely agree with that statement.
Yeah.
If they didn't have lightsabers. I mean, let's put it like this. Episode 7 was epic because people were like, wow, Kylo Ren's lightsaber is so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, but as we grew older, our interests kind of differentiated. You like more the prequels I should say you like the prequels more than I do. Mm-hmm. Though I don't wish the prequels to exist in any other form because I love the behind the scenes stuff.
Yes, you've shown me so many videos of episode 1. My personal favorite is any scene where there Jar Jar's in it, but he's not like the CGI Jar Jar. It's just like the black guy with the little hat on.
Yeah,
it's just like I don't even understand how you act around that.
I'm sure it took many attempts from Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor to nail scenes down because of that. But I guess we can start with kind of where Star Wars kind of started to change. Star Wars used to be something that was very special that even though I don't like the prequels, was still special because Star Wars only came around every once in a while. But in 2012, Disney acquired Star Wars from George Lucas for $4 billion. They started with the softer reboot and spin-offs and in-between years, which I think was their first big mistake, was not just setting their focus on creating a solid new trilogy for a new generation.
I think their biggest mistake was canceling the Clone Wars the first time, and they brought it back twice after that. That was probably their biggest mistake. But I agree. I think they definitely should have first focused on that first trilogy and really just nailing the trilogy. And I think the biggest issue, in my opinion, with the trilogy is 2 different directors. You got guy doing A and C.
Well, originally it was 3.
Yes, that would have been even worse because then you had 3 completely different ideas. I really feel like they should have it was J.J. Abrams did the first one, right?
Yes.
You should have just let him ride the horse. You got to just.
Yeah, one singular vision all the way throughout. Well, the original trilogy had 3 different directors. The first was George Lucas. Empire was Irvin Kershner. And I can't remember who the third guy's name is, but they were all different. So I don't know if maybe Disney thought that doing 3 different directors originally when Colin Trevorrow was attached to Rise of Skywalker. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Disney thought that, that's what they needed to do because that's what worked originally. But yeah, I agree with you. I think a singular... But not even that you need a one director, but they at least needed to map that trilogy out because that was not planned. Even Rian Johnson said when he was brought on board to do The Last Jedi that he asked Disney, what do you want me to kind of certain plot elements you want me to stick with from Force Awakens? They said, no, just do your own thing. And I kind of like that. And I don't. You need a general mapped out story, especially for something as big as Star Wars. But yeah, I do like some of the elements in Last Jedi. I think 50% of that movie is great and 50% of that movie is dog ass.
Yeah, I would agree with you in that statement as well. And then I just feel like that a lot of the things we're getting with right now are just very watered down, washed over, kind of just to give us. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these you wouldn't even don't really care or need shows. I like the Bad Batch show. But did we need a show spin off about the clones that we saw in like 3 episodes of the Clone Wars? Probably not.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of more just an animated thing. So it's not something that, while it's canon, not like something that's plays a big role in the main story. I'm fine with doing stuff like that because this is mostly like kids watching that stuff on Disney Plus. I don't know how dark it is. I know the Clone Wars gets pretty dark.
The Bad Batch is pretty dark. It's following like the clones after like Order 66 and how they get decommissioned and shit. And then like one of the brothers actually gets like turns on him and like kills one of their own brothers, like one of like the group. It's pretty dark. I mean, it's still for kids, obviously, with the animation and stuff, but it is definitely not like Young Jedi Adventures.
Yeah. But I think with the rise of streaming and Disney Plus, well, first of all, the reception to Rise of Skywalker scared Disney out of making any more Star Wars movies for a while, which is kind of a double-edged sword for me because while Star Wars is something that I wish they had kept special and only comes out every once in a while, there are some of the shows like Kenobi, and I haven't watched Ashoka, but you watched it before we filmed this. I'm sure that would translate better into a movie. Yeah, stuff like that, like, and especially with Kenobi, just I don't want to see Darth Vader in a TV show. He's not intimidating.
The last scene whenever you were showing me it the other day, and he just was standing over Obi-Wan, and it just looks so like comical almost the way he looks. It's not even intimidating. And if you can't make Darth Vader intimidating, we're
why are you having him in the show?
Exactly. Like we're doing something wrong.
Yeah. And with the Obi-Wan show, I was genuinely looking forward to that because I think Ewan McGregor was brilliant casting as Obi-Wan. But with the show, it started as a movie that you could tell was stretched out because each episode has a nice little character moment or two for Obi-Wan, but then the show just kind of keeps moving along and it's not really an engaging story when it's spanned across 6 episodes. So I think, just the fact that even though each new movie in the episodic trilogy made Disney $1 billion, they transitioned to making shows. And obviously that's also because they want content to have on Disney Plus. Yeah. And I'm fine with doing, a couple Star Wars shows here and there. Like I didn't finish it, but I'm in the midst of watching Andor, and that is the best fucking thing Star Wars has put out since Empire. There's a lot of just great attention to detail on the set design. They use the lighting in interesting ways that makes it feel like a lived-in, gritty, space environment that I haven't seen from Star Wars really since Empire.
Yeah, I really thought you were going to enjoy Andor. That's why I suggested that one to you.
Because you watched Acolyte and Ashoka.
I took the bullet this time. Yeah. I'm not doing it again. Next time you're going to have to watch the bad ones.
Well, hey, I haven't watched anything Star Wars since Kenobi.
And I only watched both of these for this video. But I think Acolyte wasn't as bad as it was received. I will say that the negative reviews definitely influenced my watching of it. I also will say that the 2 main characters, the black girls, were 100% unnecessary, and the story could have been told without them there.
Yeah, they're like they're born out of the Force, like Anakin, aren't they?
Yeah,
which kind of makes Anakin less important.
The way I see it is they were created by the Witch Coven through the Force. And so they're not special because the Force itself didn't create them. So in my opinion, Anakin is still special because the Force itself knew it needed someone to rectify its balance.
Okay.
And so it created Anakin to do that. That's my headcanon for that. Okay. But Acolyte could have been really cool, following Jedi that didn't even matter. So we can actually care about these people and not be like, they're going to just get slaughtered in 10 years by the clones.
What's his name? The Conehead guy. What's his name?
Ki-Adi-Mundi.
Ki-Adi-Mundi. Yeah, he's in the show. Yeah. And he gets slaughtered in Order 66.
He did. And so does Yoda. But Yoda does not get slaughtered. Yoda has a nice peaceful death. So
he just goes to sleep.
Yeah, the Yoda cameo was by far the biggest.
Well, that's a setup for season 2, right?
If he's not in season 2 very actively, it would be a little frustrating because they literally peek him right at the end when the green head girl goes and
X-23.
Yes, X-23. When she goes and she's like, Master, I need your help. And I really just enjoy how like the entire time there's just very clearly a Sith, and everyone's just like, but what if like there wasn't a Sith? And so it's just like, I guess that's like the whole point of it, to beware, you know, where no one knows there's a Sith and that the Sith are really good at hiding, but I don't feel like they're actually hiding. So
I heard that in the Acolyte, they make the Jedi really stupid.
Yes.
Where in the prequels, it's not as atrocious because they are kind of just more so aloof. I don't know how many times Yoda says it, but he says it a lot where he's like, oh, the dark side is clouding my judgment. Yeah. Like that's, I mean, not that that's something I prefer, but I've heard in this new one that they make the Jedi also kind of morally ambiguous as far as things they're doing.
Yes, they do. They let the Jedi kind of get away with a lot of things. And there's like splinter cells of the Jedi Order, kind of almost like where there's other Jedi temples around the galaxy. And like, there's no like monitoring or anything like that. And so it's very weird to see how the Jedi Order is like 100 years ago, and now how it was in the prequels. It's just like very vastly different. Like we don't even see a high council meeting at whatever. It's just a random Jedi trying to solve a problem without telling anybody.
Yeah, the stuff that I gravitate towards more in Star Wars is kind of the seedy underbelly stuff, the Andor kind of stuff that I think is something that they've not taken advantage of and exploring too often. I like the Force when it's a lot more subtle, like it is in the original trilogy, where it's just a couple of tricks here and there. You can move things, but I don't. And this is more so just how George Lucas made the Jedis. Was they're very stoic. You can't have any emotion, and that to me makes them not interesting to watch. But something with the Disney era, something they started with Force Awakens was kind of after the prequels trying to make everybody remember what the original feeling of Star Wars was. And now that that ended poorly and they didn't like that, now they're kind of leaning more towards what people who like the prequels like out of Star Wars, which is the Jedi. And again, the Jedi are just not interesting to me. It's not the like most interesting aspect of that world.
I feel like Acolyte would have worked a lot better if it had focused on the stranger as the primary and like his relationship, because they do like a little tease in it with like a with I'm assuming who's the actual Darth Lord at the time, because it's like it looks like if you ever seen like a picture of Darth Raven.
No, but I don't know who any of the Siths are aside from the ones that we've seen in the movies, and Darth Plagueis, who I also heard makes an appearance, right?
It must be him then. It must be Darth Plagueis, because
the one who's kind of like, I've seen the clip where he's like hiding behind the rock or whatever.
Yeah, so that's in there, and that's like a little clip. I also feel like the Acolyte could have been told in like one little season, and they were definitely
or a movie.
Yes, and they could set up a second season. Which but it's not going to happen. It had terrible reviews. They put out Acolyte season 2. Be surprised.
The only things I would say are genuinely good on Disney Plus from the Disney Star Wars era is Mando season 1 and Andor. What I've watched thus far, I would say that Force Awakens was something that is genuinely good, but knowing where it goes, I can't enjoy the Force Awakens if I rewatch it anymore, because I know where the story goes.
Yeah, I haven't seen I don't think I've seen Force Awakens since episode 9 came out, and it's just so upsetting to see such a promising start to the new trilogy just crash and burn in not even a spectacular, very sad way.
Yeah, it was a very safe, just exactly what you would expect from Star Wars finale, which was disappointing because it's the finale of a 9-movie saga.
Yeah.
And like that, and I know a lot of people didn't like a lot of the stuff in The Last Jedi, like Rey being a nobody, which I thought was a brilliant choice made by Rian Johnson, that she is a nobody, and to make her Palpatine's granddaughter. It's like that whole third movie is just written by Reddit and what people wanted to see who were on Reddit.
Yeah, it's very poorly put. The third movie is very poorly put together as far as plot.
Feels like an anxiety attack. Because it moves so fast to make up for the lack of a story.
I mean, you get, he's returned. Palpatine's back in a trailer.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
And you were just supposed to all sit there and be like, you're right. He did. Yeah. He did it.
And we didn't even, and that was something he comes back off screen. Like, if you're going to do that, you have to show us how he survived. Yeah. All he says is, oh, the force is the dark side is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural, as one a callback and a lazy excuse to have Palpatine back.
I feel like the ninth movie wouldn't be as bad if they just kept the Rey versus Kylo for the whole movie. And instead of having like Kylo kind of like pull up and save Rey at the end and turn good.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest problem with Rise of Skywalker is how it ends. And that is, got to give Kylo a weak and just a weak redemption arc. A real redemption arc for him would have been to have to rebuild the Jedi Order by the end of the series and kind of atone for all the horrible shit he had done his whole life. Where like him dying is just like it's just a cop out. It's not interesting. And then it makes no sense for Rey to go to a planet she's never been to, see two people she's not related to, and claim the name Skywalker. Where if he had survived, it would have actually been the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, I feel like definitely the movie was set up for him to have this whole redemption arc and it'd be very impactful and meaningful. And instead we got like 10 minutes of him being like, I'm good. I'm going to fight these guys. Oh, I'm dead. And then Rey's like, oh, Kylo died. I'm a Skywalker now.
Yeah.
And that's like basically the last 45 minutes of that movie.
Yeah. We don't really have to talk too much about the new trilogy, but it does go into play when talking about just the current state of Star Wars. Is, the reception to those last two movies really scared them out of making any new Star Wars movies.
Anything creative, really. Everything's been very safe and the only thing that's not existing, that was not already existing, something that was existing was the Acolyte.
Yeah.
And that was also met with mixed reviews now. So who knows if they're ever going to release anything like that again.
Yeah. Now Disney and all these film studios, they have market research teams who are like, oh, people want to see this, people want to see that. Instead of like back in the day when social media and the internet wasn't a thing, like in the 80s, they were taking a lot more chances with things like Temple of Doom. Perfect example. That movie got hated when it dropped. But before that, there was no internet. And so like they weren't basing their stories off of what they thought people wanted to see. It's just like you back a movie with a budget, you film it, and then you put it out in the world. And if it sticks, it does. And if it doesn't, it doesn't.
I feel like Mike might say it earlier, but the oversaturation of it is just, there's so many shows now and there's so many things they're planning that they're in development or coming out with too. It's just like, how do I care for all of this?
Well, just going into all the stuff that's in development, and they clearly have, like, Disney clearly has no plan for what they want to do with Star Wars, because there's been so many things that have been canceled or greenlit and canceled, prematurely greenlit.
I think we have 3 trilogies currently in the works.
Yeah. So I think you might have taken a little more extensive notes than me, but the canceled and unknown status of projects is Star Wars Rogue Squadron movie, the Lando movie with Childish Gambino, Rangers of the New Republic, Rian Johnson's trilogy has been canceled, and Kevin Feige's trilogy has been canceled. And then the stuff that is upcoming and in the works is TV shows. We have Andor season 2, Ashoka season 2, Mando season 4, Boba Fett season 2, which I don't know who the fuck wants that.
I don't think people asked for the first season.
No.
So we got a second season.
I don't even know why they brought Boba Fett back. Like, I know it's canon that he crawled out of the Sarlacc pit monster, but who gives a fuck about Boba Fett?
I mean, at this point, who cares?
Yeah, the Mandalorian is when people think of Boba Fett in their head, like, the Mandalorian is like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, why? And then movies, we have Mando and Grogu, which I'm sure will be somewhat quality. Taika Waititi's movie, which I know has been kind of off and on, greenlit, not. Dawn of the Jedi, directed by James Mangold, which I might be interested in seeing that. I like James Mangold. I think
that might be a trilogy. I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay. Well, either way, that's something I'd be interested to see because I like James Mangold as a director. Logan's one of my favorite movies ever. I didn't think he did a great job with the Indiana Jones movie, but he makes very good movies. Then we have a Mandoverse movie directed by Dave Filoni. Yes. And the new Jedi Order movie that they're bringing Daisy Ridley back for.
Yes, which is a trilogy. I know that for sure.
And I'm on board for that one because I love Daisy Ridley in those new movies. I think she got so much hate, and I don't know why. I hate when people are always
she's a woman Jedi.
Oh, she's a Mary Sue. And I'm like, dude, you're talking about a movie series where a 10-year-old boy flew into outer space for the first time and defeated like the whole Trade Federation droid ship.
Yeah.
Like everybody in Star Wars is a Mary Sue. That's not like when people say stuff like that, it's like that's their critique of the movie of why it's not good. It's like, no, that's not why these movies are not, up to par with the original trilogy. They're not on par with the original trilogy because the character drama is not as interesting and the overall story was not planned out. Daisy Ridley, I thought was great. So I'm totally on board for her new trilogy.
And that's directed by, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that name, but it's a lady. Oh,
I think
it's the person who did Miss Marvel on Disney Plus.
Oh, the Miss Marvel show.
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't. The Marvel shit is like the same to me as Star Wars. Like I have no interest in watching all those shows, but I did watch 2 episodes of the Miss Marvel show, and that show was actually very visually creative. So maybe she'll do something visually creative with her little trilogy.
And then I think maybe the New Republic Mandoverse movie might be a trilogy as well. I read that somewhere. I could be wrong as that, but
I don't give a fuck about Mandoverse. Well, I think this whole thing can kind of lead into when Disney bought Star Wars, Marvel was already doing their thing. First Avengers movie, it came out the same year that Disney acquired Star Wars. And so clearly their plan was like, oh, Marvel makes us a shit ton of money. So we're just going to turn Star Wars into Marvel. And they're 2 totally different things. You can't do a Marvel Cinematic Universe with Star Wars.
One thing I feel like they're really missing out with, and I think they're going to do with the Dawn of Jedi movie, is they have so much Star Wars timeline before Episode 1, and for some reason they refuse, besides now the Acolyte, to go back there. And there's the Star Wars Legends, which is like kind of all the books and comics that came out before Disney.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of good lore with like the Darths, like the Ravens and all these other guys that basically
Darth Plagueis.
Yes, they created like the Rule of 2 and stuff.
Have you read all that stuff?
I've read the Darth Raven series, the 2 books from that,
mm-hmm.
and that kind of is where the Rule of 2 comes from.
Yeah,
is him. And so it's really, really cool. Like, and you could do a movie about that where like there's just as many Sith as there are Jedi, because that used to be how it was. They used to be even numbers.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they used to be at war constantly until the Sith imploded upon themselves due to the manipulation of Darth Raven and his master.
See, I think that just with Star Wars, like, that if you're gonna do something prequel era, and like, what would it be? New Republic era?
Yeah, like the High Republic.
Era. Yeah, like. That's stuff that I would want to see more so than a Sith is lurking in the background.
Yes.
Like, that's something we've seen a million times. And yeah, I mean, I guess that would be pretty, like, if you are going to do, prequel stuff, then just go all the way back. Like, because having just all the Jedi, like I've seen in clips of the Acolyte, just kind of standing around, no personality, boring, just shit. And everybody, with anything gets what they do out of whatever series of movies and stuff. Like a lot of people for Indiana Jones, for example, get their thing with Indiana Jones. I want to see Indy fight Nazis.
That's mine.
Yeah. Where me personally, Temple of Doom is my favorite because that movie shakes it up and does something a little different. I think you could drop Indiana Jones in whatever story you wanted to. Like, I know the 3rd movie was originally supposed to be like a haunted castle movie. I want to see that.
I feel like that they're so focused on telling you stories that mean something, and are like, this is important for this reason, this and this. And then you don't have to tell a story that has an overall importance. You can just tell a story that has a beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there doesn't need to be an overarching theme, which I think what you're talking about with the Marvel is that there doesn't need to be, wow, this was really cool. I wonder what's going to happen next time. Like, no, you could just put a beginning, middle, end, wrap your story up, and people would eat that up, honestly. I feel like they're trying to open end everything to open it up for sequels and more.
I think they're just like throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks. I mean, people work very hard on television and movie productions. Like I'm talking about people like lighting gaffers and, assistant to the directors, editors, stuff like that. But I just think the stories they're choosing to tell is like, why? It's again, going back to Marvel, it's like you have the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, all your A-listers that you didn't have when you build up to this great thing before, and you're doing shit like Thunderbolts. Like, who cares?
I feel like that they're doing a lot of things that don't matter. Like, I mean, like Skeleton Crew. Like, what even is that show? I've seen a trailer for it now, and I've read like 2 different reviews. Yeah. Or little like tidbits. I still couldn't tell you what the show is actually going to be about. Yeah. I think there's a Jedi in it played by Jude Law.
Oh, yes, I did. Yeah, I think I saw a still image of him.
That's about all I know. And like there's kids and they're in the galaxy, dude. And they're kids, man. I don't know. I like, you're going to give me that, but I can't get a Darth Raven fucking movie. Like, what are we doing here?
I don't even know who Darth Raven is.
He's a pretty prominent, like in the legends. Like he'll be like he's referenced in many different the lore and stuff.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty positive. Don't quote me on this. You can put a little thing up afterwards, right? But I'm pretty sure he started the rule of 2 with the Sith, and so that's why he's important. Because without him, there wouldn't be the rule of 2 with just a master and apprentice. Mm-hmm. So that's I think that's the reason I know his name so much.
Okay,
but like. You have so many books. You just go read a book.
Yeah,
just go read some books. This is the. Can we have a little little lessons with Connor? Go read a book. Go read a book today, guys. All right. And God, like read a book here. Like that's all you got to do is like read a couple books and you'll get inspired. There's so much Star Wars like lore already out there.
Yeah. You just need to pick the most interesting stuff, and not even stuff that you think is going to be interesting to the mass populace, but a filmmaker who is like, this is a pocket in the Star Wars universe that I really want to explore. It's really interesting to me. And then you give a director or a filmmaker kind of what they did with Rian Johnson, but not to that extreme, free reign to explore that pocket. Mm-hmm. Then that passion is going to shine through and it'll translate, and it'll, like Andor, that was clearly a show with a lot of passion in it, where Kenobi, there's passion in it, but it's like, this doesn't need to be a story that spans across, 5 hours of TV.
Yeah, I feel like the thing.
And it's like, dude, people would have fucking rushed to the theater to go see Ewan McGregor back as Obi-Wan, and especially bringing Hayden Christensen back too.
Oh, of course, that would have made lots of money.
Which a lot of people who don't like the prequels always hate on Hayden Christensen, and I actually really like Hayden Christensen in those movies. I think he was doing the absolute best with what he was given. I mean, we could play some B-roll of George Lucas's direction for him, and there's
always this good in you at this point. The good part is saying, what am I doing? And the bad part is saying, I'm doing this for Padme, I'm doing this for us, and it'll be better for the universe, it'll be better for everybody.
Roll the clip of George Lucas saying, oh boy, they're already working on the set. Gotta work on that script for episode 3.
Yeah, they're already building sets. God help me. I'm gonna have to start this script pretty soon.
Which is like I know that we've gotten in many debates and arguments about the prequels, but I would not wish those movies to exist. I have my own love for the prequels. Like there's a lot, and this is just coming from somebody who went to film school, studied filmmaking. This is just kind of a Star Wars in general now for me, especially after Disney acquired it, is I get much more out of the discourse around Star Wars and Marvel than I do like the actual projects themselves.
Yeah. I feel like that's what they're kind of they might even be leaning into it. It's just like they put out enough projects. As long as they're talking about you, who cares how they're talking about you? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, they just want to make money.
Yeah, any news is good news, or any, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that they're just doing whatever they want, and they know that we're gonna buy it. Like, are you gonna tell me that whatever movie they put out Disney or Star Wars next, you're not gonna go sit that and watch that in theaters?
I mean, I guess I'll more so be interested to go see whatever the next Star Wars movie they put out is, because we haven't had a Star Wars movie since 2019, right?
Yeah.
And Star Wars just in general needs to take some bold new directions, because it's not even like I've seen this a million times at this point. It's just like I said, they're just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks.
I agree. I think that they have a lot of various places that they can pull from. Mm-hmm. Like they could make a post. I mean, there's a lot of things they could do. I mean, like the Rey movie, obviously that's an obvious decision to do. Go ahead and give her a trilogy of her own where she's not bogged down by, I wonder what cameo is going to happen in this movie. Oh boy, Han Solo died. Oh boy, Leia had the Force and reached out and got back in the ship. Nice. Sick. Oh boy, and Lando's back. Nice. You know, maybe hopefully she can, hopefully they don't bring back Chewbacca and stuff, and they just let her have her own thing. Like
yeah, I want to. The only character I would be interested in seeing in her movies is Finn, because Finn also, after The Force Awakens, got very shafted and just put on the shelf, and that is all a tribute to how Force Awakens did in China. And so, like, if you look at like the posters for The Force Awakens, like in our poster here in America, Finn was like, woo. And then in China, he's like this big on the poster. And that's another thing is like now Disney, like George Lucas, for better or for worse, in those prequels, he was making the movies he wanted to make. And however he wanted to make them, and this is just how the studio Hollywood system works in general, is you're making movies that can be shown and make money in foreign markets. Like, just example, Doctor Strange 2, having America Chavez's parents be lesbians. And it's like a little 30-second scene in the cut in our movie that we got here in America. But when that movie releases in China, they completely cut that like 30 seconds out. So it's like, this is shit that's only in here to appeal to masses here. And then they cut it out in foreign markets so it can make money over there.
Yeah.
And that's just what the Hollywood studio system is now. But I think that they're like, in the coming years, we're going to see a shift in Hollywood and the movies they're making, because I think more independent stuff is going to start to, and like more just original movies are going to start to take more precedent. Indiana Jones 5 bombed. I
think they're starting to realize that if you just slap a sequel on something, it's not going to make you another $1 billion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't just keep making. I think you made a good point whenever you're in the Deadpool video, whenever they were saying you can't make a sequel just for the sake of a sequel. Mm-hmm. They have to learn to pump the brakes. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we're just not there yet.
No,
we're still in full gas, baby. I think we're like at a quarter tank right now. So I feel like we're almost there, guys.
It's running low.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, even like with Indiana Jones, that was a $300 million budget, which Indiana Jones is not a Star Wars. You know what I mean? It's a very different kind of thing.
Well, it is when you time travel. It is when you got to time travel, Sam.
Hey, I think that was honestly I only watched Down Destiny that one time in the theater, and I honestly think that was like the most interesting part of that movie, because I had no idea where it was going.
Yeah, I was just like, all right, what are we doing here? And then it was like, oh, we're going back in time. I'm like, oh, all right, that's where we're going, guys. We're going back in time.
I never thought I'd see Indiana Jones go back in time, but
we did.
Yeah,
Dial of Destiny.
But like, yeah, this like they're dumping Disney dumped $300 million into an 81-year-old Harrison Ford Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah. I wonder how much of their budget Harrison Ford's check was.
I don't know. I think Harrison Ford might take a pay cut to make another indie movie just because he loves it so much. But obviously, I think majority of like a good portion of the budget went to his paycheck.
But yeah, I feel like Star Wars is just in that same place that everything's in right now, where no one cares.
Yeah.
You honestly, like, Andor was good and we didn't care to watch it until this video. You know what I mean? And so it's just like they could put out an episode 5 again, and I don't think anyone would even bat an eye at this point.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I think it's just oversaturation, not planning out stories. And it's like, it's just the corporate meddling, the mindless studio executives. It's very rarely, the problem with stuff like this is very rarely like the creative team. It's mostly just clueless studio executives like Kathleen Kennedy, which is weird because Kathleen Kennedy, she worked on the original Indiana Jones movies. She was a producer. I think she came on in Temple of Doom. So I think like for that new trilogy, a balance of Lucas ideas and people who would cut him off at the horrible ideas, but those little kernels that he has. Because, I mean, George Lucas is a great idea man, but I don't think he's a great filmmaker or writer.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement as well. I feel like he's really good at coming up with like the general ideas and the key points, but like the in between stuff, like when you're you could like whenever in the episode 1 behind the scenes when the one guy's criticizing him, and he's just like, we just jump from here to here. He's just like, well, it's too late now. Throwing him out in 2 weeks.
May have gone too far in a few places.
A little disjointed.
Seems like a lot of short scenes.
It's bold in terms of jerking people around, but I may have gone too far in a few places.
In a space of about 90 seconds, you go from lamenting the death of, a hero, to escape, to slightly comedic with Jar Jar, to Anakin returning with his little kind of tag. It's a lot, and it's a very short time.
Boggles the mind.
Thank you for showing me that. Those are if you like Star Wars and you're looking for a good laugh.
Yes.
Go look through some clips of the behind the scenes. They're
of the prequels specifically.
Yes.
The engine sets. Look at that. This is fucking grim.
The sequel they ain't do nothing there.
No.
Nothing
well, and that's something that I have a lot more reverence for that prequel era, even though I don't like those movies. Because the behind the scenes stuff, just in general in movies, is what always fascinates me more. But when you watch behind the scenes on The Force Awakens or any of the new movies, it's like there's a Disney gloss over the like, oh, this was a great experience, and everybody, including John Boyega and Oscar Isaac, despite being shelved for China box office, they had wonderful times making these movies. I think there's a clip where they asked John Boyega, oh, what would it take for you to come back and do Finnegan? And he's like, you ain't gonna Disney Plus me. I ain't getting no Disney Plus.
Yeah, that's what they put him too. They wouldn't even give him a movie. They put him on Disney Plus. That's the crazy part. It's like you got main movie characters and you're going to push them to Disney Plus. And the crazy part is in the Ahsoka show, right? There's a scene where C-3PO comes in. I know for a fact if Carrie Fisher was alive, they would have made her ass come back out for that. And I'm just like, there's no way you're going to try and pull Leia and her name in a fucking Disney Plus show. That is absolutely insane.
Yeah, I think that's also a big mistake just in general with the Disney Plus era of Star Wars is like Mando Season 2 bringing a CGI, Mark Hamill back. Like, keep the Skywalker main shit in the episodic movies. I don't want to see them I don't want to see Darth Vader in an Obi-Wan show. I don't even want to see Obi-Wan in an Obi-Wan show. I just want to watch an Obi-Wan movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like they could just create new characters. They don't need to take these characters that we already know and just be like, the only reason they're doing it is like, well, people are going to watch it. I'm like, I'm going to watch it and be upset that you ruined the character. So like you're glad I'm watching it. Cool. But then now I'm not going to watch your future projects.
Well, too, with the bringing back original characters in, a de-aged format, it's like, this feels so fucking phony. And Solo, which is actually, I think one of the stronger things Star Wars has put out since acquiring it, that movie had a recasted Han Solo, young Han Solo.
And a recasted Lando.
And that it works so much better because also you got to think about, you're bringing in a new generation of trying to usher in a new generation of Star Wars fans. So these kids who probably haven't seen the original trilogy that this stuff is more so aimed at, they don't give a fuck. So yeah, just like make some new characters, make them interesting.
I don't know. I feel like they're so wrapped around like that era of Star Wars where I love the Clone Wars eras, and I think that like the Clone Wars show is like stretching out that era where you get to see all those little battles is really well done.
Well, even
if we're done there.
Even if you do like a live action something set in the Clone Wars, because that's something that I think the prequels didn't take advantage of, is that we don't really see any effects or really any war at all until the third movie.
Mm-hmm.
I know in the Ahsoka show, they show flashbacks to her and Anakin fighting in the Clone Wars. It's like, do stuff like that.
That was probably my favorite part of the Clone War, of that show, was those little flashbacks where it's just like where Rex is in the background and the clone armor looks really well done. And and you're just sitting there like,
they don't look like CGI cartoons, like the prequels.
And so you're sitting there like, what are we doing here, guys? You give me just a 10 episode limited series, right? Of the Clone Wars. Just call it that. Don't call it Star Wars. Just the Clone Wars. And you give me each episode 30, 40 minutes, and it's just a different battle. You follow a completely different Jedi. You don't follow Anakin. You don't follow Obi. You don't follow anything. You follow Ayla Secura. You follow Luminara. Like these one-off Jedi Masters, right?
Or a Coyote Mundi or someone like it's a good opportunity to make those characters interesting. Not that they would be any more interesting in the prequel movies, but like at least
the Clone Wars show did is all those background characters that you see sitting on the council, they gave them depth, they gave them personality, and they could do that in a live action form now. And so if they did that, that would make money. That would go hard.
Yeah, but we got to make stuff like the Acolyte.
We got to have 2 black girls made by the Force, and one of them's good and then one of them's evil, but then they flip, and then at the end of it, she kills her master, and then after that, she goes with the dark guy, and then there's a season 2 now, and why did I watch that? Like, man, I want you to know, I knew that show was like going to be bad because the green girl, the X-23, who I actually really liked, has a lightsaber whip, and it's purple, and I'm just like, oh, now Samuel L. Jackson's not cool. What are we doing here, guys? You're taking his thunder away from him. You can't do that. That's Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, that's like when the prequels were coming out. That was something that Samuel L. Jackson told George Lucas, like, I want a purple lightsaber. He's like, oh well, they're red or green. And bad guys are red. That's how it works.
Trying to figure out who we had to talk to about your light color, your lightsaber color.
Oh well, good guys are green and blue. Bad guys are red. That's just the way it works.
No purple left?
You might get purple.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought Mace Windu was like a super compelling character. I thought he was boring as fuck, but at least it's like, hey, it's Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, I also didn't understand like the physics behind having a lightsaber whip. Didn't get it. And it's also only in like one scene. So the one scene that you see in the trailer, that's the only time you see it in the entire show. So it's just like, it's just in there for like the shock value for the trailers, essentially, to be like, whoa, what's that? And then you see it for the one time, you're like, it's actually kind of stupid. And it's purple too. It's that purple just really upset me. I was literally sitting there like, dude, Samuel L. Jackson did not fight for this in episode 1 and 2. All right. He did not make those shitty movies for this. All right.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like, I never ever get upset. Like, I think like there's a lot of like Star Wars fans who are just like diehard, watch anything regardless if they think it's good or not. And for me, like with any of these franchises, they're made by Disney. So I don't like, there's not a point in getting mad or upset over this shit. It's like, this is something that's scheduled to fill a slot on Disney Plus. While it's a shame that Star Wars isn't as special as it used to be, I don't really care. Like used to when I was a kid, put in my little DVD or VHS, and then and my heart would like skip a beat, and I'd be like, "Oh, let's fucking go!" And now it's like, I don't care.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I feel like there's so many things out now, and it's just kind of just basic now. You know what I mean? It's not like you keep saying, it's not special anymore. Like there's really no reason to watch.
Yeah. I mean, part of that might because we're getting older. So our kind of like excitement for this kind of stuff, but it definitely like, I would say I'd still be very interested in Star Wars if it was a very sparse thing that only came out every once in a while. And again, I'm fine with doing a show for Disney Plus, but you got to do that stuff very sparingly as well. And when you do it, you got to make sure it's quality. But Star Wars used to come out every 3 years. So it's like, and that's kind of something just with movie sequels in general. Like,
They're too quick to get the sequel. They need to let it marinate a little bit.
Yeah, like Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I love Tom Holland as Spider-Man. But when a new Tom Holland Spider-Man movie comes out, it doesn't feel very special because...
We're on number 4 now.
Yeah, and because like in between his regular movies, he pops up in like 3 other things. So it's like you don't have any time to miss Tom Holland as Spider-Man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to Andor, something that I think makes Andor really great is that it dives deep into a pocket of Star Wars that is pretty much up to this point been pretty unexplored, where it really shows how shitty the Empire is, and it actually makes the Empire scary for once. And when before, like, and I'm fine with this, like the original trilogy, you know, you're never really, you know, the Empire is the enemy and the antagonist, but you're never afraid of them, which is fine for those movies and the kind of tone there. But Andor is a much darker tone. And I think stuff like that is just what Star Wars needs to, they need to explore different tones of what Star Wars can be.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the one thing they're really missing out on right now is like a live action show from not the good guy's perspective. Why are we always on the good guy's side? A different perspective could be, what if we're on the Empire side or something like that, right? A movie, story told from that. I did watch the little Tales of the Empire 6-part little animated thing. Didn't care for it, to be real with you, after saying all this. But I feel like that was more so they chose poor people to highlight in that, when they could have chosen very interesting people. Like they could have Grievous's backstory. That would have been sick, watching him like kill a bunch of fucking Jedi. And then
I guess, I mean,
there's certain things they could have done. I really enjoyed.
Well, that kind of goes into like what we were talking about earlier, where, you know, you can flesh out characters who people didn't really care about in the first place. Kind of what the Clone Wars did. Yeah, I mean, but for me, I never gave a fuck about General Grievous. Just because,
but you know what I mean? Like, just like off the top of the skull, you know what I mean? Like, just thinking like there's things you could do, and like with the Ahsoka show, right? That came out, you could have tied that in with the Tales of the Jedi, and you could have given us the Balin Skull backstory, because I thought he was probably the most intriguing character in that show and the best actor in that show by far. And I'm very disappointed that
who is Balin Skull?
The white dude with the beard, the dark Jedi. He passed.
Oh, that guy. Yeah, the guy that looks like George Clooney.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought, no, when I saw the Ahsoka trailer, and I think me, Will, and Sean watched it, and I was like, I remember that guy popped up, and I was like, George Clooney in a Star Wars project. I thought that was George Clooney for the longest time. And I realized it was another actor until he sadly passed away.
Yeah. And so like the one thing I was actually looking forward to was like his follow-up with his storyline in season 2 of Ahsoka. Now we're not going to get that. And I thought he was by far the most compelling character and the best actor in that show. And so I feel like they could have had like his backstory of how he turned on the Jedi, because he doesn't really explain that in the show.
Is he like an Inquisitor?
No, I don't think he ever was an Inquisitor. I feel like he was a Jedi who turned, essentially, and I think they label him as a dark Jedi.
Yeah. I also don't like the idea of post Order 66 kind of neutral or dark Jedi, because I feel like that just undermines
the rule of 2.
Not even the rule of 2, but more so going back to the original trilogy, where at that time it was only Yoda and Obi-Wan who survived. I think that's much more interesting, because it's like
made the genocide feel like a genocide.
Yeah, and if you're doing Inquisitors, and like they do in the Obi-Wan show
and everything, they do it in everything.
Yeah, it's like, I didn't think so many survived. And it's also, if you're making darker Jedi and you're the Empire, it's kind of hypocritical because you're wiping out all the Force users. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So the way they kind of try to play it off is basically like they convinced the Jedi that the Jedi were wrong, and so they're like, "Oh, I'm going to join the New Order." X, Y, Z. It's very poorly done in my opinion. And I definitely feel like
Star Wars has put out.
Yes, and I definitely feel like the concept of Jedi surviving isn't poor in my opinion. Like other Jedi surviving, because like there's so many of them. Like then that's what the one thing that the Acolyte really puts out is like there's so many of them you can't even keep track how many Jedi there are. And
I mean, there's that huge temple that we see in the prequels.
Yeah, so you mean like so there's so many Jedi that like there's no way every single Jedi was with a clone. You know what I mean?
I guess. I mean,
and there were certain Jedi who like in like the Force Unleashed games, the blind guy, he refused to use clones because he didn't like them. So he had his own personal militia that he worked with, and that's how he survived.
Justifiably so for not liking those clones, because another big problem with the prequels is that they discover that this clone army has been paid for and built for a decade
by a dead Jedi.
Yeah, by a dead Jedi, and Obi-Wan even asked on his call to Mace Windu and Yoda, he's like, did the council ever request the making of a clone army? And they're like, no. And then they never follow up with that. They just take them because
not even the Clone Wars. They didn't even follow up with it on the Clone Wars, and that could have been an interesting storyline. It's just like so much wasted, like so many plot holes and just wasted opportunities.
Yeah.
And I just feel like they really just they're just like missing the point. And I feel like they really could benefit from taking the dark side perspective and just running with it. You know what I mean? And I thought, but personally, one of my favorite things they put out recently, not Tales of the Empire, but Tales of the Jedi. You should watch the 3-part with Dooku. They're only like, I know you're like, I don't care about Dooku, but I'm telling you, it makes him compelling and it makes him look right. You know what I mean? Like it makes his ideals of like turning on the Jedi look right, because
he's a political idealist, not a murderer.
Exactly. That's and that's how they kind of
something that was a line that was never fleshed out in the prequel.
And it's fleshed out in these little, that's why I'm saying like there's these one-off lines that they have that they could actually flesh out and make.
Yeah.
And they
going back to George Lucas being a good idea man.
Yes.
But not knowing how to flesh that stuff out in a story.
But I recommend watch like the Ahsoka 3-parter, terrible. But the Dooku 3-parter, it because he's Qui-Gon's his apprentice in the last one, I'm pretty sure. And then he's with Mace in one episode, and it's really cool because Mace is like following the orders, and Dooku's like I see like injustice happening, and Mace like we can't interfere with Jedi. And so it was really cool that like in the show that they really made a point to like be like Dooku saw injustice in the galaxy, and Jedi aren't allowed to just freely act. And so he was frustrated with that and sought other methods. And that's how he becomes with Palpatine, and Palpatine corrupts him and says that by becoming a Sith, he'll be able to change the world, not knowing he's just a puppet for Anakin in the future.
Yeah. But also kind of piggybacking off what you were talking about, how Dooku was just a puppet for a later Anakin to be Palpatine's apprentice. One problem I have with the prequels is I would have much rather preferred Darth Maul as the apprentice for all 3 movies, because one, that would give Obi-Wan something interesting to do, having to face Maul after the death of Qui-Gon.
Which they realized they fucked up by bringing him back in every animated medium since then.
And not that Darth Maul was an interesting character in Phantom Menace. He has like 2 lines, so we never learn anything about him. But visually, he's cool, and character-wise for Obi-Wan, it would have been interesting to have him have to face the guy who killed his master.
I would argue counterpoint that Dooku should have been the 3-part because he was Qui-Gon's master, and so he could have tempted Obi-Wan to the dark, tried to tempt Obi-Wan, and it could have been like a conflicting thing with Obi-Wan. And so I like the Maul thing, and I love the Maul versus Obi-Wan in the Clone Wars. Excellent. He kills Obi-Wan's love that he's not allowed to have right in front of him. Chef kiss, that shit was excellent. And then in the Rebels, like Maul is back in Rebels, and his whole thing is he's looking for Obi-Wan because he knows Obi-Wan's still alive. Yeah. And so he fights Obi-Wan in old age, and Obi-Wan one-shots him.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And it's pretty clean.
Yeah.
And he kind of forgives him at the end because he's a Jedi, and Jedi are good people.
Yeah. See, for me, I would have just preferred Maul because
He looks
I don't
cool.
like not even that, but I don't find what's the
Dooku?
actor who plays him?
I can't. Who Dooku?
Yeah,
I can't even.
big
can't tell you.
dude. I'm always good with this stuff. But
It'll be on the
yeah,
screen.
he's not like an older Sith is not intimidating to me. And while Darth Maul is just a visual, at least he is a visual.
I just felt Dooku was more compelling because he actually had some sort of story around him, and we had nothing from Maul.
I guess, yeah.
And so, like a fallen Jedi as the apprentice of a Sith Lord is, if they had fleshed that out, could have been a very interesting concept. Especially
you
if
could
he
just
had,
slap that on Maul.
You could have,
too.
yeah. I don't know. He looks spooky. I don't know if anyone would let him be a Jedi. Like, oh no, you're too scary.
I think I heard through cultural osmosis that the red, that's like something like tattoos that he had himself or had done. Because his race is like yellow, right?
They're like, they range from yellow to red, I believe. So like they're like that, like kind of color spectrum.
Okay.
Color spectrum, you know what I mean?
Okay.
But like his brother is yellow, but there's a bunch of orange ones. Like they,
okay.
and I feel like the red thing might be just because they're like he was evil.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that was something that was planned I think that's something that the Clone Wars.
Yeah, they had to like be like, how do we explain he's red? Oh, he's evil.
Yeah. But let me ask you this, and then we'll wrap this up. How did you feel about Hayden Christensen's Ashoka appearance?
Oh, I mean, it's basically
I've seen the
Clone Wars.
clips.
It's basically the Clone Wars. I mean, he
Yeah.
does it very well, in my opinion.
Well, I saw the clips because I was like, I'm not going to watch a whole Ashoka episode, so I'll just go look at Hayden Christensen's scenes on YouTube, and I like where they were fighting each other, and he has the red lightsaber, and she sees kind of flashes of Vader real quick. That stuff visually is pretty cool.
Yeah. So they spent the whole episode on that.
Yeah.
Like just her like being unconscious in the water.
Yeah.
When if they could have made the movie, right, which you talked about earlier, they could just been like a little 10-minute little thing. Instead, I watched 40 minutes of the same fight.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just I'm not like a person that's mad about where Star Wars is now.
Well, I'm pissed. Listen here, Disney. You watching this shit? Get your shit together, all right? I can't stand this anymore, all right? I've given you some fucking great ideas, all right? Let's use them, all right?
Yeah, we put a whole 5 minutes in the thought into these ideas.
It's more than y'all did.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't care about Star Wars anymore. I'll go see whatever movie they put out next just to see what a Star Wars movie looks like that's not an episodic thing.
Yeah.
But
we're years from that, bud.
I mean, you're years away from it, but also Star Wars is never ever going to be what it was.
I mean, they could fail for the next 20 years and they're still going to put out Star Wars.
Yeah, because it makes money, of course. Yeah. As much as people don't like those sequel movies, each one made $1 billion. Even Rise of Skywalker.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I guess that'll wrap it up. I don't really have much more to say.
Yeah, I'm pretty much tapped out.
Yeah. Tired of talking about Star Wars.
It's a long hour and a half.
Yeah. But all right, y'all. We'll catch you in the next Media Madmen podcast.
Good talking to y'all.
Yeah. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.